The Wicked Shipping Company was a locally owned and operated shipping company located in pre-war Boston. It was founded by the Flynn brothers Tim and Blake and had a fleet of 7 trucks before the bombs fell. The company's primary distribution centre was located outside of Concord city limits to the west and delivered to all parts of Boston and its surrounding areas. 3 Wicked shipping trucks were out making deliveries on October 23, 2077 when the bombs fell, with the clients being major corporations. One was the delivery of uranium pellets to the General Atomics factory in South Boston. Another was the delivery of fuel cells for the Corvega assembly plant in Lexington. And finally a shipment of barrels of radioactive waste destined for the mass fusion containment shed. None of these shipments made it to their destinations. However, not everything was how it seemed at the Wicked Shipping Company, as secretly the Flynn brothers who owned it had a deal with mob boss Eddie Winter and were using the company to smuggle radioactive materials and were stealing items from their clients' delivery shipments and modifying the shipping manifest to cover up their theft. The drivers were well aware of these criminal activities and were ordered to check in with the brothers before making their deliveries to ensure everything was covered up. This was extremely important as at least one employee had previously failed to do so and had put their criminal business at risk. This was doubly important as Eddie Winter was threatening to kill them if they failed to fulfill their deal, and Blake had also alluded to something bad happening to the employee who had previously caused trouble for the company. In the end though, it seems the brothers did manage to hold up their end of the deal, as the mob boss received enough radioactive material to successfully undergo an experimental procedure that turned him into a ghoul as he had planned. Although Eddie Winter had been satisfied and their deal completed, it seems the Flynn brothers were continuing to do business with him. While Blake seemed fine with this and seemed happy with how things were going, Tim was beginning to have second thoughts about their deal, especially given the fact that Eddie Winter had made death threats to them, and due to this Tim recorded a holotape asking Blake to shut down the company and flee with him to avoid Eddie's wrath. He also suggested that they meet up face to face to talk things over.
You'd have listened to me as a brother here. This whole deal with Eddie is wicked shiesty. I mean, what kind of business partner threatens to kill you if the deal doesn't go his way? We are in way over our heads, man. I can't see a way out of this. No way except shutting down and getting out of Dodge. Give me a chance to talk this out with you face to face. I just want both of us to get out of this.
The holotape is found in the back of a vehicle shed at the company's main lockup next to the skeletons of 2 men facing each other, who have slumped backwards against the walls opposite each other with a gun at one's feet and dark stains on the walls behind both skeletons, suggesting that the brothers did meet up but that it unfortunately didn't end well, resulting in them either killing each other or, as there is only one skeleton found with a gun, maybe one brother killed the other and then realising what he'd done and feeling remorse killed himself. Did you know about this story? If you did, leave a comment down below, let me know what you think about it. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing. Have a great day and I'll see you in the next one. While wandering the wasteland of the Commonwealth, you may come across Big John's scrapyard. It is filled with super mutants, but if you kill them and explore, you can discover Big John's big secret. So sit back and relax and I'll tell you all about it. Upstairs in this building, you can find a terminal containing a few entries from Big John, who owned and lived at the scrapyard with his wife and 2 kids. The first entry is dated August 2nd. In it he says, "I've sealed up all the cracks I could find in the trailer and made sure all the pipes are clamped tight. I still need to make sure the ventilation is set up correctly, but I'll save that for next week. Shelley thinks we should start telling the kids about the shelter so they know where to go if something happens. I'm not sure they need to know quite yet though." The second entry is dated September 15th and details how he's encountered some problems building his shelter. He writes, "Okay, the ventilation is set up, but I'm having issues with the generator. It keeps shutting off for no obvious reason. Whenever the generator shuts off, the ventilation fans no longer work, which apparently vacuum seals the trapdoor on the shelter shut. Let's hope that doesn't happen again." The final entry is dated October 28th, so we can assume that these entries were made at least a year before the bombs dropped, as they dropped on October 23rd. So either that or someone at Bethesda messed up the dates in this final entry. In this entry he says, "I think I figured out the generator / ventilation issues. All the supplies are stocked up and ready. The only thing left to do is wait and hope we don't need to use it. I was telling Shane and Kimmy about the shelter, but how do you explain a bomb shelter to a 5 and 7-year-old? I just need to let them know where it's at. So I tried to get them to repeat a rhyme, hoping that would help it sink in. In the tipped over train behind Dad's shop, climb above and drop in the top. They seem to like the rhyme. So if we follow the rhyme and find the train at the back of the shop, we can discover a locked hatch but are unable to open it. But if we go outside and follow the power cables from the train, we can find a circuit breaker, we can flip the switch and activate it, and then we can go back to the hatch and go inside. Once inside, we come across a very sad and tragic scene, as we find the bomb shelter Big John built to keep his family safe. Despite his best efforts, his whole family died in the shelter, as the generator and ventilation problems that he mentioned in his terminal entries happened again, and the generator turned off, shutting off the ventilation and sealing the door to the shelter shut, which is why we couldn't open it and needed to activate the circuit breaker. This doomed the family to a slow death, suffocating in the bomb shelter, as there was no working ventilation and the door was vacuum sealed shut. The children died first, and we can find their graves in the shelter, with a teddy bear on one grave and a baseball and baseball glove on the other grave. The husband and wife then lay in bed, hugging each other, awaiting the inevitable death. I can only imagine how horrible it must have been, knowing they were going to die and watching their kids die, and in Big John's case even worse, as he probably blamed himself, as he built the shelter and he knew of the generator problems. He had hoped he'd fixed it in the past, but obviously the problem occurred again. As it turns out, they might have been better off if they didn't make it to the shelter, as at least they'd have met their end quicker. Have you found this shelter? Let me know what you think. If you enjoy the video, leave a like, comment down below, subscribe for more videos like this. Have a great day. If you come to this location in Fallout 4, you can discover an abandoned house filled with ghouls, and it has a quite interesting story to tell that ends with the creation of the first ever pre-war ghoul. So stick around, sit back and relax, and I'll tell you the story. As we enter the house, we find a lot of feral ghouls, some dead, some aren't. If we clear them, we can find this holotape on the kitchen counter, detailing the beginning of the experiment.
Entry 3, recorded by Research Assistant Peters on February 26, 2077. Time, it's 12:35 hours. Subject's direct radiation exposure level increased to 2 sieverts per 24 hours. Intravenous fluid intake increased to 1 liter. Subject reports localized pain in frontal and parietal lobe, accompanied by severe nausea, with vomiting on average 3 to 6 instances per 12 hours. Solid food no longer viable by oral intake. Other symptoms include general weakness in limbs, bleeding of gums, severe abdominal cramps, and diarrhea. Dark stool indicates possibility of intestinal bleeding. Shortness of breath also an issue. I will now describe changes in mood, or thought process. I have never in my life felt as horrible as I do right now. The discomfort is almost too much to bear. I often contemplate termination of this trial. But I know it'll only be a few more days before I reach 6 sieverts. Then I can administer the serum. We'll get our contract renewed. Serum will go to the market, and it's going to help people. It's really going to change the way we live. And me, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Cyclical thoughts. No other developments to report.
So as we heard there, she was conducting a voluntary experiment where she had injected herself with extreme levels of radiation in order to test a new cure for toxic levels of radiation. As we'll find out in the next tape, things don't seem to be going all that well. So if we come upstairs and go into this room here, we can find the second holotape of her log, detailing her experience and what's happened since she injected herself.
Entry 6, R.A. Peters. It's March 1st. The subject has reached saturation threshold safely. Taking measurement now. Confirm 6 sieverts. Rapid fluid loss due to fever. Upped IV intake. All previous symptoms are still present. Tissue damage visible on arms, neck and hands. Necrotic sloughing of the skin. Topical and ingested antibiotics applied to control infection. Now injecting first dose of serum sample 42BA7 into bloodstream. No immediate effects observed. Animal trials yielded results in less than...
Finally, we can head upstairs, and on the top floor we can find a locked room. If we pick this lock, a glowing ghoul will come crawling over the top of this bookcase. Once we eliminate them, we can discover that this was most likely the person who has been leaving all these recordings. And in this room we can find the final holotape that details their tragic end.
Second dose of sample 42BA7, injected hours ago. No effect. No effect. I contacted the lab to terminate this trial, but I need to talk to her. Hang on. What's that? Oh, my teeth. Oh, several teeth dislodged. Feels like necrotic tissue damage throughout oral cavity. Serum is ineffective at toxic levels. Request to terminate trial was... Orders are to remain in quarantine for the duration of the experimental period. I understand. I'm going to die. That's obvious. It's right here. Our failure. If you would, Dr. Roberts, please deliver the following to my family. Mom, Dad, I love you. Yes, I volunteered for this. It sounds crazy, but I believed in it. There'll be nothing left worth bearing. Just know Oh, no. That's a bit too sentimental. Let me think about it.
You can only imagine how horrible her final moments must have been and what she must have thought. Did you know about this story? If not, consider leaving a like and subscribing. Leave a comment down below if you think this was the first pre-war ghoul ever created. Some think it's Eddie Winter, some think it's Wayne Gorski. I personally think this may well be the first ever pre-war ghoul. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. While wandering the wastelands of Boston, you may come across the Taffington Boathouse. Outside we can find several blood bugs and a dead Brahmin, and if we go inside we can see the house is infested with blood bugs too. If we kill them all, we can find the body of Mary Sutton upstairs, which has a note from her daughter Margaret. But what happened here, and where is Margaret? Well, sit back and relax and I'll tell you all about it. If you enjoy this video, consider leaving a like and maybe even subscribing. It really does help the channel. If we read the note, it says, "Mum, Russell's been gone for over a day now, and I'm getting worried. We were going to wait to tell you, but we found an old holotape from before the war in the boat shed. It sounded like someone had stashed some chems in the drainage at the end of the canal. Russell thought we might be able to sell them to one of the traders. Maybe use the caps to buy another Brahmin. I'm sorry we didn't tell you, we just wanted it to be a surprise. But that's the second one of those bugs we've seen today, and I think something went wrong. So I'm going to have a look for him. Don't worry, I'm just going to take a quick peek and I'll be back soon. Margie." So now we know where Margaret went to look for her brother Russell. We can go to the end of the canal to look for them. This area is also infested with blood bugs, and once we've taken care of them, we can find Margaret's body near the drainage pipe by the end of the canal. Unfortunately, when I recorded this footage, I'd already killed the blood bugs, so you obviously won't see them in this video. But anyway, if we search her body, we can find another letter. This one is from Russell to his sister Margaret, and in it he says, "Margie, I snuck out last night and had a look at the drainage pipe at the end of the canal. It's cracked and it looks like if I clear away some of the garbage, I should be able to get in. I think it's the opening they mentioned in the holotape. If we can get those chems, we might be able to buy a new Brahmin. I'm gonna go check it out, but I told Mum I was going over to the slog to trade for some tools, so cover for me. I should be back by evening. Russell." So if we go inside the drainage pipe, we find even more blood bugs, and once we kill them, we can go up here and walk along this pipe, and we can find the body of Russell Sutton and a chem station and some chems. If we check Russell's body, we can find the pre-war holotape that they found in the boat shed that started all this and led to the whole family dying.
Greetings, brothers! You are here because it is that time of year when we induct our newest members into this most esteemed fraternity. Before their initiation is complete, they must be prepared to receive the mysteries of our order. You can find the substances necessary to open their minds in the drainage, as you all remember from your own initiation. Remember that the pledges should be blindfolded before you bring them up the canal, and keep an eye out for anyone out late in the park. The elders will be by Sunday evening for the dinner, and all new pledges must be present, so stick to the normal dosage. Orto oblitus osa!
Unfortunately, as you can hear from the holotape, molten drainage was used by fraternity before the war to do their initiations. And when Russell broke into the drainage pipe, he released a blood bug nest which killed him, his sister, his mum and the Brahmin. Although he made it to the chems, he was seemingly killed by the blood bugs, but your companions do comment on the strong fumes in the room, so maybe he was overcome by them, as there aren't any blood bugs by his body like there was with everyone else. However, as we don't suffer any damage from being in the room, we can assume he was most likely killed by the blood bugs, and instead of giving his family a better life, he instead brought about their demise. If you made it this far in the video, thanks for sticking all the way through. Consider leaving a like and subscribing, and have a great day. I'm sure you all know the company Mass Fusion, which is one of the many corrupt pre-war companies in America in the Fallout universe. This company was founded on lies, and it really was a case of fake it until you make it, as you'll find out in the rest of this video. So sit back and relax and enjoy the video. If you find yourself liking this at any point, please consider leaving a like, it really does help. Let's get into it. Before the Great War, Mass Fusion was Boston's main utility provider, providing power to all of Massachusetts with a lucrative line of fusion wells, engines and cores. It was founded in 2043 by Carl Oslo after spending 6 years as an electrical engineer with Poseidon Energy. Oslo decided he'd had enough of traditional methods of energy distribution and thought he could do it better and cleaner, so he founded Mass Fusion to begin realising his vision. His Clean Power initiative officially focused on developing affordable sources of energy based on nuclear principles, and by 2053 his efforts paid off as the first fusion distribution boxes and sources of power entered the market. Through cunning and dedication, Oslo's company eventually cornered the energy market in Massachusetts, becoming the primary power provider for the state by 2070. In truth though, it was all built on a lie, as they had been lying through their teeth about selling clean fusion power, as in fact the junction boxes and plutonium wells were all fundamentally fission based and were provided with lead shielding to protect users from irradiation. However, imperfect shielding was all too common, and radiation was a real risk among consumers. The company of course vehemently denied these accusations. Nausea, vomiting, hair loss and radiation burns were all common symptoms, but they denied it had anything to do with their so-called clean power. It wasn't until 2066 and the unveiling of the first power armor fusion cell that the company truly started providing fusion power. But even then, the legacy infrastructure currently in place to supply power was too vast and would be expensive to replace, so instead they carried on with their lies of providing clean energy despite the risk to their customers. Mass Fusion continued to operate containment facilities and dumping grounds in rural Massachusetts, hiding the radioactive waste from prying eyes. However, Mass Fusion and its CEO Carl Oslo were on the verge of making a breakthrough. His clean power initiative would finally create the first sustainable clean fusion reactor. Through the use of a beryllium agitator, this reactor would be able to provide over 22,000 megawatts of power to Massachusetts and allow the company to finally stop lying about providing clean fusion power. The brainchild of Carl Oslo and Noel Chandrick, the project was accelerated following Oslo's contract with the military requesting a power source beyond anything made before. Chandrick complained to Carl Oslo about accelerating the project schedule as he felt it would be unsafe, and he believed that Oslo was making decisions he may not have made before getting the military contract. Oslo ignored Chandrick's protest and the project was accelerated. Thanks to Kathy Hathaway's work on graphene shielding, the installation of the beryllium agitator was made possible and the switch was thrown to power it up on July 30th, 2077. By August 29th, the reaction was confirmed to be stable and Mass Fusion would finally be able to provide clean power. Unfortunately for Chandrick, who had helped to develop it, he was fired a week later with a non-compete agreement and forbidden from entering the building ever again. Unfortunately though, the public would not really benefit from all this clean energy, as 2 months later the bombs were dropped, and the world as they knew it changed forever. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider leaving a like, subscribe for more videos like this, and have a great day. Located to the south of Diamond City, the Boston Police rationing site was used by the Boston Police Department to distribute supplies to civilians, but it came under investigation by the Army for ration shortages. So were the police or Army members stealing supplies intended for the needy? And if so, who was doing it and why? Well, sit back and relax with an ice cold Nuka-Cola and some perfectly preserved pie, as in this video I will answer those questions and also tell you how this story ultimately ended. So make sure to stick around until the end to find out. The Boston Police rationing site was set up before the bombs dropped by the Boston Police Department. They did this by combining 2 basketball courts and a railway unloading depot, with the railway unloading depot being used to bring in food and other essential goods to be distributed to the needy at the site set up on the basketball courts. Of course, with such a large supply of goods, many of which were in short supply on the general market, theft and abuse was a natural concern. To address this, the United States Army Reserve was responsible for providing security and the loading and unloading of the goods from the train, while the 3rd Precinct of the Boston Police Department was in charge of the distribution of the goods to the people who needed it most, which they did by checking the receiving ledgers and distributing the supplies to civilians. The shifts were scheduled and overseen by Detective Francis Perry from the police and Sergeant John Reese of the Army. However, this was not enough to stem the tide of corruption and incompetence, as goods kept going missing. Complaints about the shortages and missing items were dismissed by Sergeant Randall of the Boston Police as just some civvies trying to weasel a bit more out of the system, and he instructed his officers to continue to keep the lines in order. However, the officers either couldn't or wouldn't do so, as there were several news stories about pickpockets stealing medical supplies from old ladies right under their noses at the rationing site. Meanwhile, officers on duty were trying to cozy up to the soldiers on guard. This was strictly forbidden by the senior staff, who informed their troops that there was an ongoing investigation into the ration shortages in the unit. We can find all this out by reading the terminals, and we can also find this holotape from Detective McDonnell for his partner Detective Perry.
That son of a bitch Sergeant Reiser caught me trying to have a look in the warehouse, and that asshole actually drew his weapon on me. Look, Perry, I know you two came up together and all, but I'm telling you that guy is dirty, and I need you to have my back on this. Those ration crates didn't just go missing on their own, and it's our job to make sure they're getting to the people who need them. Just lean on him a bit, okay? See if he'll let you in the warehouse to have a look around. McDonnell out.
If you're still watching, consider leaving a like and subscribing, it really does help the channel. Anyway, back to the story. So what was happening? Where were the supplies disappearing to, and who was responsible? The police or the army? Well, the answer is actually both, because if we explore and read the terminals, we find out that it was the result of collusion between Detective Francis Perry of the police and Sergeant Reese of the army, who were stealing supplies and hiding them in the utility tunnels running between the rationing warehouse and the Massachusetts Turnpike Tunnel. They were old friends and had no compunction about stealing supplies for resale on the black market. The supplies were then sold by Detective Perry's cousin Jack. However, he was having a hard time trying to sell the stolen goods, and Sergeant Reese was having none of it, as we can hear from this holotape.
We need to talk, Perry. Your partner keeps sticking his nose where it shouldn't be. I don't care if he's a cop. If he keeps sniffing around the tracks, he's liable to get hit by the train. Are we clear? Anyway, I've got this stuff moved down into the utility tunnels, but it's burning a hole in my pocket. I don't want to hear any more excuses about it being hard to fence. People would pay top dollar for this stuff.
Sergeant Reese was so concerned that he ordered his men to arrest Detective McDonnell if he came anywhere near the warehouse, as we can see in this terminal entry from inside the warehouse. In reality, Detective Perry was planning to betray his old friend Sergeant Reese by pinning the whole scheme on him and skipping town after his cousin Jack had moved the goods to a safer location. However, Jack dragged his feet and less than half the goods had been moved. This prompted Detective Perry to record a message for his cousin Jack, which we can listen to now.
Jack, this is Perry. What's taking you so long, cuz? You should have moved more than half this stuff by now. I've got that sanctimonious prick McDonald breathing down my neck. Partner my ass. We gotta get this stuff out of here and skip town before Reese catches on. We'll let his dumb ass take the fall for this, and come back in a week or so and say our grandma was having health problems down in New York. Just make sure you're ready tonight. And who's there? You better show yourself, asshole.
However, as we can hear by the holotape and see by the two skeletons and the supplies scattered around, the plan to have his cousin Jack come by and collect the rest of the goods on the night of October 23rd was interrupted by Sergeant Reese, who had overheard Detective Perry recording his message about his betrayal. The two then engaged in a gunfight in which they killed each other. Then of course the bombs dropped and their skeletons would lie undisturbed for over 200 years, surrounded by the evidence of their crimes. I hope you enjoyed that video. Did you know about this story? If you didn't, please leave a like and subscribe. Have a great day and I'll see you in the next one. Located near Boston Commons, the Boylston Club was a private social club that only admitted the upper crust of society. This included former presidents and vice presidents of the United States, governors and lieutenant governors, senators, Supreme Court justices and legitimate male heirs of these people, and other esteemed gentlemen nominated by the group and able to afford the yearly fee of $500,000. Upon entering the building and going upstairs, we come across a strange sight as we find quite a few skeletons and some poisoned wine. Searching around, we can find a holotape in the terminal behind the bar, as well as a list of planned social functions to take place at the club, such as Canadian cigars, fad or fashion, a members-only tasting with a master tobacconist on October 5th, an evening with Lieutenant Governor Graham, a 7-course dinner with spirits to follow on October 16th, then the Red Menace Wines of Asia, a monthly tasting with a master sommelier on October 21st, and finally the Memoriam Gala on October 30th, which was added to the calendar on October 24th, the day after the bombs dropped, with flyers sent to members who survived the bombs and were still able to attend it. It was to be a solemn event and a final toast to the world that was. We can hear that toast by playing the holotape.
It's closing time, gentlemen. If any of you have changed your mind, it's time to go. James will see you out. No one? Very well. Gentlemen, it has been an honor and a privilege. Before we drink, allow me to offer a final toast. To the world that was, mankind shall never see its like again.
As we can hear in the tape and see by the skeletons and poisoned wine in the room, the remaining members of the club who wished to attend the gala then drank the poisoned wine and chose to end their lives rather than trying to rebuild and overcome the challenges of life after the bombs had dropped. No doubt they couldn't see the point in living a life without all the comforts and luxuries that they were used to, and chose to go out with one last party with free food and an open bar as detailed on the flyers. Did you know about this place? Have you ever been to this location? If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more. I'll see you in the next one.